Federal Drive is presented by GEHA, Government Employees Health Association, proudly providing health and dental benefits to federal employees and their families. Visit GEHA.com.
Welcome back to the Federal Drive with Terry Gerton on Federal News Network. The state of Maryland got a crash course in emergency economic assistance when the Francis Scott Key Bridge collapsed just over a year ago. They're now bringing those lessons learned to support federal workers and contractors who may have lost their jobs because of recent realignments in funding and programs. Maryland's Secretary of Labor, Portia Wu, is here to tell us more. Many of the federal agencies that have experienced large workforce reductions under the Trump administration are headquartered in Maryland. The Social Security Administration, the National Institutes of Health, for example. What are you seeing as the impact to Maryland residents?
Well, thank you, Terry. We know that Maryland has the second highest concentration of federal workers outside of the District of Columbia. We've got about 270,000 Maryland residents who work in federal civilian employment, over 200,000 individuals who are federal contractor employees. So there are some significant impacts. We have not yet seen drastic increases in terms of unemployment claims filed, but we are starting to see that uptick, and we do expect that we will see more in the weeks and months to come.
Well, it's important that you mentioned not just the feds, but the contractors. And I can imagine that there's even a third order effect to this where there's an impact to businesses that support those feds, lunch spots, public transit, all of those kinds of things. Is that starting to manifest itself yet?
We haven't yet seen those numbers. The first jobs report just came out and based on March, and we are seeing that there are some impacts there. We actually added private sector jobs in that month, but we definitely lost public sector jobs. And so I think we're keeping a close eye on that. We do know there are ripple effects based on individuals as they experience job loss. They may cut back on spending, may cut back on other things, and that will absolutely affect businesses in all of our communities.
So do you think it's the delay in the fact that maybe people really aren't coming off the federal rolls until May or later that's sort of delayed the impact in your employment numbers?
Well, part of it is we have a natural lag in the employment numbers to begin with. We get them, a month or two afterwards. So I think we will still continue to see ripple effects throughout the summer and the fall.
And I know the state of Maryland had a practice opportunity at this about a year ago when the Key Bridge collapsed, and that really disrupted employment across the state as that major transit artery was closed. So how did that experience help you and the state of Maryland prepare for what will be probably another spike in unemployment?
Well, that was a very tragic circumstance when the Francis Scott Key Bridge collapsed. But I have to say I'm incredibly proud of the public servants in state government in Maryland with our response and our coordination with the feds. Here at Department of Labor, we were responsible for some of the economic response programs. So we had unemployment insurance, of course, but we also stood up an emergency worker retention program with businesses, supporting them, as well as supplemental income worker support. I think what we learned from that, we were able to get those programs up very quickly. We will have some additional programs here in Maryland and use our state programs to try to support federal workers. But what we learned from that is it really takes an all-hands-on-deck approach and a strong coordination between the state and local government, between our workforce and unemployment insurance staff and local job centers. We have 33 around the state. That is absolutely going to be key. And I have to say, we are using a lot of lessons learned from that playbook today. We sync at least once a week with all of those key leaders so we can coordinate, share information, what we're seeing, and share information about resources as well.
So obviously cross-agency coordination there in the state is a huge piece of this. Were there any assistance programs that turned out to be especially valuable or productive?
You mean during the bridge response?
Right.
Yes, absolutely. We actually stood up what we call the worker retention program, and it was grants to businesses to keep their workers on payroll. Because the thought was, the state cannot possibly pay all these salaries. Many businesses, especially businesses located at the port, were anxious to keep their workers on so they could be ready to go back to work the moment the channel was reopened. And so they had a strong incentive. So essentially we provided just some of that filler gap and capital to help them bridge until the moment when they could reopen. But I want to note that, of course, the businesses themselves made tremendous investments. They kept people on healthcare, they kept them on payroll. That was the handshake requirement of those grants, and we found it was very successful. It helped several hundred businesses and thousands of workers.
Very much like the Paycheck Protection Program during COVID then.
Similar, very similar.
Yeah. I'm speaking with Portia Wu. She's the Secretary of Labor for the state of Maryland. So as you're anticipating another round of federal employees and the folks that are affiliated with them perhaps losing their employment, what are some of the programs you've put in place now to help them, whether they took the fork in the road or they took early retirement, any of those other options? What are you thinking about now?
Well, there's sort of two groups of programs. One of them, of course, is to help individuals find other job opportunities here in Maryland. So to do that, we have 33 American Job Centers around the state. We actually conduct a weekly workshop through our Professional Outplacement Assistance Center. We've had over 1,000 feds join that so far. And it's a 3-hour workshop. It's online. People can kind of think about, how do I recast my resume for maybe a different sort of opportunity? That could be state or local government, it could be nonprofit, it could be private sector. So people can email fedworker.transition@maryland.gov to sign up, and we'll also share with you our website link to make sure that individuals can access that. So that's one set. There's the job search activities. We're also having job fairs all over the state, partnering with Civic Match to help collect resumes. The governor's also announced some sort of feds to eds opportunities, people who might want to go into teaching or find other ways to serve in their communities. Then there's income support. So the primary response there, of course, we have is unemployment insurance. And that for many individuals, they will be eligible. I know there are a lot of questions. And frankly, the way these job layoffs or reductions have happened has been a little confusing for everyone. So we encourage people to go to our website to take a look at the resources, so they understand, gosh, is it the right time to file for unemployment insurance or not? We also have, of course, housing assistance. Maryland has also passed a new law for a modest loan program for individuals who might need to resort to that, who are facing financial hardship.
Does an individual's eligibility for any of these programs depend on which kind of separation they got? If it was voluntary or if it was forced, if it's retirement versus separation, does that affect what they might be eligible for?
It does. And thank you for asking that, Terry, because I think that is one of the sources of confusion for many people. What do I do? First, I will just a couple basic facts. But again, I would encourage people to, go take a look at our website, go call the helpline if you need to. A couple basic things to think about, though. First of all, if you're unemployed and applying for unemployment insurance, as a Fed, you apply in the jurisdiction of your duty station. So if you live in Maryland, but you worked in D.C., you apply in D.C.
Oh, that's good to know.
To people. Yes. Second, if you are still being paid, we have many people who are, I'm not in the office, but I've been placed on admin leave for a period of time, and I am still connected to my job in that way. You are not unemployed yet. So please do not file, because we will have to turn you down. You're not eligible yet. Severance pay can also impact your unemployment insurance, depending on how much you're receiving and what the conditions of that are. So I think sometimes people want to file early. It can actually disadvantage you if you file at the wrong time, because there are limits to the number of weeks of unemployment insurance you can get in a year. And you don't want to be in a situation where your weeks are being counted against you, but you can't collect any pay because you're getting too much severance. So it's important for people to take a look. We have a bunch of resources on our website. But again, it does vary case by case. And so people have to understand their circumstances. Get your documents together, I would say, for people if they're not clear. Have your SF-50, all the other documents that you might need to get access to, have them in paper and e-copies so that we can, copies of your pay stub, copies of your W-2 from last year, so we can help verify employment that way.
That's really helpful advice, because I can imagine most of these people have never been involved with their state departments of labor. They've never filed for unemployment compensation. And so getting all of their documents together and really thinking through this process is going to be really important for them. And I appreciate that straightforward advice. Speaking of advice, are you and your fellow secretaries of labor across the states comparing notes on what you're doing to prepare for these kinds of transitions?
Absolutely. We've been in close touch, here in the DMV with the directors and the commissioners in Virginia and DC, because we do have a huge overlap. We know sometimes people go to both of our websites, and if the language is a little different, they can get confused and turned around. It is a confusing time and situation, so we absolutely are in touch with them. And if there's anything we can do better, we want to know. We want to hear from you and your listeners to understand how we can provide the information people are looking for.
Portia Wu is the Secretary of Labor for the state of Maryland. Thank you so much for sharing these insights and for joining us this morning.
Thank you for having me, Terry.
We'll post this interview at federalnewsnetwork.com/Federal Drive. Subscribe to the Federal Drive wherever you get your podcasts. Still to come, contractors and agencies should be prepared for some bumps in the acquisition reform road. But first, how to manage federal programs better using state and local data. You're listening to the Federal Drive with Terry Gerton on Federal News Network.